Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
It's Commander's Horn, episode 72. I am with three gentlemen that I spent the weekend with in Philadephia for the Wild Hunt Gwent Open LAN, which is the first of its kind for Gwent and a nice showcase of North America. As the season comes to a close at the end of February, Arena approaches as well. New cards coming, all that and more on this episode of Commander's Horn. Welcome back, one and all, my friends, to Commander's Horn, a weekly Gwent podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dane McBeard, and I am joined today in the co-host chair. My man Flake is joining us, and also, it's kind of a mashup episode. We have two of the hosts from the Grandmaster Plan podcast, ShoePlays and JoeSnow. Let's go kind of around the table here. I'll start with Joe. Joe, how you doing? How you feeling after Wild Hunt? And how's that end of the season climb going for you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm good. First of all, thanks for having me back on. I am doing great. Wild Hunt was one of the most memorable weekends of my life. It was just so badass, so awesome. I was a little tired, had a little recovering to do. Some of us might have been up late a couple of those nights, but things are going well. Right now, just hanging on, hoping I get to stick top 100 and don't have to play any more Gwent. If I could hang on, that'd be great. If I got to risk it at the last minute, I'll be awake and give it a shot.
Yeah, you got to risk it a little bit, maybe. Some people were asking me in the chat if they'd be safe at X position, and I'd say, you're never safe. I feel like it can shift so crazily. At least I know, Joe, you're safe in the top 10,000 if you're top 100 right now. Also joining, also joining us, ShoePlays, also from the Grandmaster Plan podcast. We wanted to do like a live, crazy like mashup episode, but this is it ended up being kind of a long day. 14 hours and 23 minutes was the stream. We started the day even earlier than that. Shoe, how you doing on recovery? It's only been a couple of days since we were hanging out. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking. It was a long day, especially for those playing in the event. Anyone who has kind of grinded the ladder or even done tournaments knows that it takes a lot out of you. And unfortunate for me, it was Saturday the event, Sunday drive right back home 5 hours, and then school on Monday. So hanging in there barely.
Ooh, the sacrifices of time and space.
Totally worth it, though.
Totally worth it. Yeah, I think everybody's saying, even the people that are sick, I think they're saying, it's totally worth it. And also, one of Gwent's rising stars, my man Flake, joining me once again, frequently on the podcast, of course. Flake, how did it feel to host one of the most interesting tournaments for like so many different reasons? I think it was one of the most interesting tournaments. It being so unique and so many great personalities. You got a chance to talk to a lot of different people. What's your how do you feel? How do you feel now that it's all over?
I feel great, actually. I think that it was well put on, and I mean, there have been a lot of kind words that have come my way, but I have to sort of spread that out to everybody because there was so much that went on behind the scenes, and I mean, 15 hours is a long time to watch Gwent, but it's even longer to play Gwent, to cast Gwent, to produce Gwent, to do all that periphery. So it was a great experience in general. It was the first time that I ever really participated in something of that magnitude, or that how vast it was and how far-reaching it was. And again, like I said, probably would I drop everything and do it again in a heartbeat. It was fantastic.
It was really awesome, and I think that most of the people that had a chance to, if you didn't have a chance to watch it, I mean, there are some, you can probably start watching if you just wanted to kind of take away like the general atmosphere. Definitely tune into the beginning few matches, especially if you want to hear me and JoeSnow at our maximum energy. We were at the beginning, and then I think maybe at the end, because we knew it was all coming to a close. But you know, check it out for sure. Check out the top 8, at least those series. You can kind of watch the story of Dr. Gerb because he was featured in the last 3 games, just because of kind of how the feature games went. There were lots of games happening simultaneously, but we had feature games that we were casting. I was casting with Joe. Swim rotated us out, and then later on, Shoe got a chance to cast a game. Locken got a chance to cast a game. Both did spectacularly. Flake hosted as well as Swim. And, you know, Mark Theus was there, Always Turtle, Grey Boxer, Amers from the Lodge of Sorceresses. Thrilling was on at one point, No Control, threw the whole thing together. I'm going to forget some names. A lot of the Commandos were also in full force, a great North American crowd. Definitely check it out. But it was unique because it was a LAN in that it was all happening at once. There were 50-plus people there as well, so we had multiple rounds, and it was an open tournament, so anybody could enter if they wanted to pay the fee. So unlike, you know, all of the Gwent tournaments beforehand that have had a large, like, you know, a large production even close to this, have not been this. It's been like the cream of the crop top 8 or challenger kind of thing where it's like the cream of the crop. So you got to see a large variation in the feature games. Joe, what do you think was your favorite part, kind of like with all that in mind, as far as the atmosphere and the vibe and like the games we got to see? What was your favorite part of the weekend, kind of from that lens, through that lens?
I mean, it really just was the atmosphere for me. Getting to see so many people all come out, all be excited to play Gwent, to meet, to hang out with each other. I mean, I'm not just saying this to kiss ass. Every single person there was so cool, so friendly. Everyone got along. There was no issues, no problems. There was a bunch of nerds hanging out, drinking beers, talking Gwent, playing Gwent. It was just the nuts, right? Like, it was great. Obviously, you can't do it every day. You don't have nearly enough energy, but it was just such an awesome environment to meet and hang out with all of these cool people, get the whole, like, who's who of all the North American Gwent personalities, some of the ladder players you play against so many times that you don't really get to meet and encounter, and they have a face to put to their name. You've hung out with them, you've talked with them. That was my favorite part. It was really just the atmosphere and the people there.
I mean, I think that, like, that's some of the biggest things that happen to games that are competitive are the grassroots movements. And I feel like this is really kind of from the ground up, I just want to do this kind of thing. And it just kind of was it was an idea that started with No Control, who was on the podcast in January when it was kind of still fledgling a little bit. And now, Shu, you were the first person to reach out to me about the whole thing before I think you had already started talking to No Control. How did it get started? Did you guys just start having a conversation one day? When were you on board with the whole thing? And also, if you had any takeaways from the overall tournament, let us know as well.
Yeah, I mean, this whole tournament and event was kind of like the brainchild and the baby of No Control. Shout out to him. He did an awesome job setting it up. He was going back and forth with the event host, the CDPR devs, just everyone making sure that everything came together to an awesome event. And, I mean, his work showed, man. The production was top-notch, the casting, the hosting, the games. Everything was just really amazing. For me, just like Joe, one of the best parts was kind of like meeting all these people that I had kind of looked up to in the Gwent community and, you know, maybe chatted with on Discord or in the Twitch chats, and finally being able to put like faces to some of these people, names, and see them in real life. I mean, that was awesome. And it just goes to show that our community, the Gwent community, really is the best. Been a part of many like gaming communities, non-gaming communities, and I think, like, for the most part, 95 to 99% of the people I've met in the Gwent community have been an absolute pleasure to deal with, and that was really awesome to see there in live, in person, in Philly.
Yeah, it was really like there was a warmth to the whole thing. I really appreciated it. Like when people were walking in, like when we were in the mansion, and some of the players that had played kind of like entered the room, like everybody would like applaud and be like, just there was like a real kind of like real warmth and community. Like it really did feel like at all times, even at the event, felt like a basement LAN. And then we were just hanging out in the basement of the Gwent mansion later. It just kind of felt like, you know, party at your parents' place. We had this nice Airbnb. Flake, I wanted to ask you, like, when were you brought on board from the whole thing, and kind of like how did you prepare for this? Because this is kind of your first foray into like being part of like a big thing. And you know, also the other thing I wanted to say is before I forget to say it, the thing I was reading a Gwent DB guide. I don't even know what I was reading, but they referred to the Archospore as Larry. You have left your fingerprint on this game. Some people don't even know where Larry comes from, but they're just calling the Archospore Larry. So I mean, you did already answer the question about what it's like to be involved in this kind of thing, but I just wanted to say, Flake has, you know, your handprints are all over this game now. Anytime anybody plays Archospore, this is the guy you want to look at. But when were you brought into the whole thing as a host? Was it your idea? And kind of like, how involved were you in the planning of the event?
So there was many months ago. I remember No Control had sent me a Discord message, and we chatted a lot. He would hang out on my streams, and I would watch his streams every now and then. Before this even was something that had any legs or any traction to it, and I remember we had a brief discussion now and then about what our ambitions were, just in terms of Gwent and what we wanted to do from the streaming aspect, and how that was going to branch out, and what we wanted this whole thing to come out of it, so to speak. And what No Control had mentioned to me was that, just in passing many months ago, he's like, I really just want to get something together for us people in North America, just to get together and have a tournament. If we stream it, we stream it. If we don't, we don't. But it would be really cool to have something local for all of us to just get together and put on a show. And I said, yeah, that's fantastic. That's a really great idea. That is a huge undertaking, and I will leave that to you, and any way that I can support, help, get involved, you let me know. And within a few weeks, he had approached me and mentioned that he had spoken to some people, and there was, the wheels were turning, the gears were going. And that's when he sort of said, we're looking for, he had secured yourself, I believe, as a caster, Joe as well. And he said, we need someone as a host, and if I wanted to do it. And I was beyond sort of floored, and of course I said yes. It was a great experience. I mean, I don't want to call it stage experience. I've done stage work before. I've done hosting duties for various events and such. I've done radio. I've done, competitive bartending, but I've never done something that I've been so passionate and in love with as I have with this esports community. So it was something that I would definitely not ever let that opportunity go by. So, but that's when it kind of came to me, and I was just very happy that No Control took the reins of this, because he's very capable of, as you guys can see, obviously, that he could put something together and make it really shine like that.
Well said, man. I have nothing else to add. I agree that, this was such a huge thing and a great thing to be a part of. And, I've done a lot of stuff in Europe, but to do something in North America and to kind of show it off a little bit and kind of just be a little bit more involved was awesome. But, there is a tournament to actually talk about, I think, and I think we can probably talk about a couple of highlights, some of the players, some of the plays, some of the feature matches, and we can also talk about a couple of other pieces of news. So we're just going to transition into that right now, and I'll catch you guys just on the other side of this here. So, Wild Hunt Philadephia was a fun tournament. It was very good. We had a winner. Trynet123 took the win. Spoilers, of course. I mean, it's all over Reddit. It is post sports. You have to be in the moment. Trynet defeated Dr. Gur in the finals. Dr. Gur defeated Vishra in the semis. Trynet defeated Goreflow in the semis. Goreflow defeated Sir Pumpkin, I believe. Trynet defeated Red Rain. Vishra defeated, I forget. I forget the last.
Vishra defeated a lot of people that day.
Vishra did defeat.
I believe Vishra beat Liston Kavanagh.
Yeah, Liston Kavanagh, and then the last two players was Goreflow taking on Amon Amarth, I believe, or Amon Amarth. I'm struggling to remember here. Amon Amarth, I believe, was against Dr. Gur in the 8th. So Dr. Gur defeated Amon Amarth. So there you go. So that was a very.
And Shoe bowed out at 9th.
Shoe, unfortunately, got just 9th, which is too bad because you had a really great feature match. I thought, which you won, I believe. You won that feature match, I think. You took that. Yeah. You took that one down. Unfortunately, was it 4-2 was the limit there, and it was just like a match score, like slight disalignment for Shoe. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was tiebreakers, I'm pretty sure. So it was actually funny. I was watching the very last match of the last round. And I think it was between Dr. Gur and Goreflow. And at that time, Goreflow was already in the top 8, and Dr. Gur was fighting at 4-1. And if he would have won, he would make it to the top 8, knock me out. and if he lost, I would actually have better tiebreaker than him, so I would make it in that scenario, I'm sure. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out. But it's okay. I got some time casting, so not too sad about that.
Yeah, you did. You did a good job as well. You casted the game between, I believe, it was Dr. Gurr and Amon Amarth, the one with the full test. The guy he was playing full test and didn't brick any draws. Like his draws were all great, but he still couldn't get a win with it. Unfortunately, they got the reverse sweep on him. The player that I'm forgetting is actually Ivan. Ivan was the one who beat the crazy Shoop Insanity feature match to get in and face off against Vischer.
Yes.
Yeah. So Vischer was undefeated in the Swiss. He went 6-0. That's the other notable thing. Vischer did really good. He was a hometown hero from Philadephia, coming in from Taiwan, but is hailing from Philadelphia. So that was pretty good. And we'll talk about the tournament a little bit more in depth because we were there and we took part, and there's some stuff to talk about, like Trinet's decks, Trinet's amazing finish, but also just wanted to make sure that I touch on this. The Gwent Challenger qualifiers also took place on the weekend. Game King went up against Tailbot 3 times, but he didn't get a chance to beat him in the finals. I think it was Tailbot versus Game King. Tailbot actually ended up advancing. Game King lost to Tailbot twice and faced him 3 times and beat him once. But Tailbot will be your Gwent Challenger participant from the qualifiers. A second set of qualifiers will be occurring in March, which will be at a more NA favorable time. So the people that weren't able to participate in the Challenger from NA, for a number of reasons, time zone wasn't very favorable, and also being involved in the Wild Hunt as well in Vischer's situation. But there's going to be another qualifiers coming up in March. But Tailbot making his return to professional Gwent at the top of the ladder. He's also number 1 on the pro ladder. I mean, what else can you say about Tailbot? I am looking forward to seeing him play again. But I don't know if anybody read up on Challenger. Anybody can chime in here. Did you take note of anything that may have occurred? It wasn't televised. It wasn't streamed or anything like that. But it is Tailbot once again. Does anybody have any comments about the Challenger qualifier? Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a chance. I was, obviously super busy all weekend.
We all were, yeah.
But that had to be a crazy matchup to watch. I guess they played twice in the Swiss, maybe some sort of double elimination format, something like that. And then they met again in the finals. I mean, that's the kind of matchup you want to see. Game King is one of my favorite players from a play style perspective, just to watch. I really enjoy the way he plays the game. And Talbot's probably the player that I have the single worst record against on the pro ladder. So both of these players are not messing around. I would have loved to have caught that match, but unfortunately, as you were saying, the matches aren't usually streamed or broadcast in any sort of way. But I'd be curious to see what sort of lineups they brought, if it was very similar or very different to what was going on at the Wild Hunt.
Yeah, at the top level, we did see a lot of kind of, when you compare it to previous Opens, like in most of the factions had a lot of different representation and a lot of different cards, even though not a lot has changed, I think. Obviously, Dwarves being different was pretty huge. But, Shu, have you run into Tailbot on the pro ladder at all? Or do you think that the Challenger qualifier lists would have been radically different from what we saw at the higher tiered players from Wild Hunt?
I'm thinking, and I don't think I've run into Tailbot much on the pro ladder. Seen all those top guys like Life Coach, Adskov, Game King there, but Tailbot has eluded me so far. As far as the deck list goes, I'd probably assume that the bulk of the decks are pretty similar to what we saw at Wild Hunt. Alchemy, Skellige, either great swords or kind of like bears. Henselt as well. Like those decks are definitely very strong, along with Skeletal. I'm not really. See, the thing is, you want to say you expect some crazy and wild out there decks, but I can't tell you exactly what because I haven't thought of them yet.
Yeah, right. And I guess this is a nice segue. Flake, we saw some pretty cool decks at Wild Hunt Philly. What was your favorite one that you saw that maybe was surprising to you? I think one comes to my mind immediately, but we saw like quite a few. We saw kind of some different variations of Henselt, little Villain Trettenmirth here, little Bloody Bear in there. We saw some pretty wild croc lists. We saw full test up there at one point. Did you have a favorite that you saw, or a favorite series?
Well, and this is what I like about these tournaments, wherein the Challenger, the Opens, and all the CDPR tournaments have an equality of the coin flipper. You know what coin you're going to get going in, so you can sort of tailor decks that are strong on blue, strong on red, etc. Whereas in Wild Hunt, you didn't have that guarantee, so you were able to be a little bit more creative because you didn't have, you couldn't play your Henselt always on red coin. So what was my favorite deck? I have to give it to my boy St. Kiwi, who came in with not only shocking the world with Ada, but shocking the world with Ada Shoop, and then triple shocking the world by forfeiting when the last card was Shoop and not even showing it. So he went from hero to absolute villain, 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. But I have to say that one of the notable points that I believe I made it on broadcast, but there wasn't much, at least on the feature table, not much consume was being played at the tournament, at least not on the main stage. The monster slot was mostly dominated by Death Wish, which makes me happy and proud. But the one thing, Liston Kavanaugh brought a very interesting deck. He brought Death Wish, but he brought it with Arrakis Queen, which was, I found, a very, I don't want to say a brave move, but an interesting one, so to speak, generally because Dagon is the more reliable leader in that case. And though he did kind of maybe misplay here or there, after 10 hours of Gwent, it's definitely reasonable to assume that someone might kind of slip up. But it was probably one of the more interesting things. But there was tons. Like you said, I believe early on in the day, there was a Bloody Baron mirror, and you rarely see that in a tournament environment, which was great.
It was the first match of the Red Rain feature match, and I can't quite remember his opponent at the time. But it was the first match was Bloody Baron Seltkirk Henselt mirror match. That was the first match that I didn't cast, so that was like the third set, I think. But Joe, we were talking like how we were going to maybe talk to Liston Kavanaugh and see if his Erica's Queen was kind of like a bamboozle on like your opponent might think you're bringing Consume, but it's actually Death Wish, and they mulligan differently or they set their strategy up differently. He said it was a bit of both, actually. He said it worked one way, but on the other side, you can actually proc a whole bunch of Death Wish with Erica's Queen and still get value out of it and still kind of play the same sort of fog core with Woodland Spirit on the other side instead of something like Kairan maybe, and of course Aeromancer. But yeah, he said it was half and half at the time.
Yeah, I actually found him and spoke with him as well right after. I just had to. That deck was so cool, and me being a giant monsters enthusiast, when I see this really sweet Death Wish deck with this unconventional leader choice, and the guy's doing well. He was 3-0 at the early stages of the tournament. Took a very, very close loss to ShoePlays in the feature match area. Both players played great, and until the semifinals, that was my favorite match to watch of the day. I had to go track him down, talk to him about it. He had some cool insight. It's just another big, heavy bomb you can drop, and then there's the bamboozle factor too. It was that deck for me, and when we were casting, remember Dr. Gur's Phoenix Skellige Ocvis theme deck?
Oh, yeah.
Was just the coolest thing. I tried it on ladder. I could not get a win to save my life with it, but it was just one of the coolest creations I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, he was playing Ocvist Phoenix, and he was playing like Croc pulls Ocvist and healing it with the Bone Talisman. So if you tried to damage it, you couldn't get it down in one go. It would just get healed. I mean, I imagine it's difficult to play because Seltkirk just kind of deals with that. And Henselt, I played a lot of Henselt today, and I played a lot of Henselt mirrors today. Henselt's kind of out there right now. Sure, are you playing right now? What's your position at the moment?
I haven't had too much time to play. I'm hovering right around like 4K MMR right now, but I have been playing a lot of that Henselt recently. I've been going at it with Shinmiri's list, or the one he's been rocking recently, and that deck is strong too. It was probably the best deck that I was playing, even at the Wild Hunt where I was running it.
Is that Baron?
And yeah, Bloody Baron, Seltkirk, Drought, or Karathi Heatwave. It's a pretty cool list and really strong, I think.
Flake, you're going to be streaming after this podcast, I know, and you're pushing for GM as well. I think anybody who's not at GM is pushing for it. It feels easier this season. I mean, I haven't gotten it yet, so I don't know if I will actually, because I'm going to run out of time. But do you think that's correct? I'm going to maybe ask everybody. Do you think that's correct that it's easier, or does it just feel like it is because the number is smaller? Like pushing into 4K definitely felt harder for me. But I've played a couple of things. I played Death Wish and now Henselt. I'm kind of floating around 40-50 at the moment. Flake, what are you playing, and how close are you at the moment?
Well, I'm playing Death Wish, which is really out of my, comfort zone. I never really do that, but it's to your point of it being a little bit easier. I mean, I've been cruising. I'm at about 4,050, around 4,025 MMR right now, and the fact that GM is at 4,200, I believe we had this discussion at the airport on the way home, where it's like Grandmaster Light, like Diet Grandmaster, the Diet Pepsi of evil, the margarine of evil kind of thing. But in reality, it's still Grandmaster, and you still have to attain it. But it has kind of lost a little bit of its luster. It's still fantastic to get there, and I really intend on making that final push tonight and getting there. But, do I miss the fact that I didn't push harder when it was at 4,500? Yeah, I guess, because I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. You still have to go through the same, brick of players to get there. So the talent is still in the pool, but they've sort of probably all, shot past it. I believe now 4,500 still has that unspoken rule of being, the upper echelon. And I still think that people are going to continue to push beyond 4,200 to prove the point that with less time, we can still make it to 4,500 to get there. Grandmaster is a great title, but I think people are now going to be a little bit more interested in ranking of top 100 ranking versus Grandmaster title.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that now maybe the accolade is the top 100 border, because now everybody in the top 100 gets the biggest and shiniest border as opposed to the top 10 or even the top 1 in some previous seasons. So that's a bit more, it's less exclusive, but it still kind of has, like, that's the accolade you're looking for. It's kind of like that is they lowered the bar for some of the achievements, but they left stuff up there for the best of the best. And then the other thing I think you touched on is the fact that the best players are pushing well beyond 4,200. So to get to 4,200 and to get that Grandmaster rank, unlike previous seasons, you don't have to maintain like a 70% win rate against some of the best players in the game, because they're far beyond that. So you still have to play well, and you still have to play against good players, and it's not easy, but it's easier. And I was trying to word that the other day, because not everybody sees it like that, but I think it's probably better off this way. I think that the borders are less exclusive, since you can get borders starting at rank 10, and they just get more and more glitzy and glamorous. Dagon is still Dagon, and the second rate border is the top 10,000, which still requires mid 4K 41 is probably going to be the safe zone, I think, as we move into less than 12 hours away, if I'm not mistaken, at this point, till the end of the season. And then you get that nice gemstone border and all the nice titles that go with it. So I think that
I'd just like to sorry to interject real quick, but even though it's definitely easier objectively, they just move that goalpost of the number down. I think that one thing that's kind of the unseen factor, at least this season, is that moving that down a little bit and readjusting the borders and the rewards, you've kind of rejuvenated people who, before maybe they didn't have much to play for in terms of like cosmetic rewards and things like that. But now you've kind of made that, in their sight and possible. So you've rejuvenated these people who, maybe were top 8,000 and, it didn't really matter that much for them. But now they want to fight for that top 10,000 spot, get that border, get that avatar. And that, along with, just patching the game. I think a lot of people, maybe last patch were maybe soured by some elements of the game. And now that they've kind of fixed a lot of those elements, you've kind of giving these people new life in the game, and they want to go back and grind and compete. So
I completely agree with you, and I'm not at all suggesting that this was a bad change. I am 100% for this change. I think that it is great for all of those reasons, Shu, and I think that it's just another thing that CD Projekt Red has listened to as far as feedback is concerned. Because I saw, I'm all for like cool exclusive things, but a big criticism was you're making all these cool things that only top 1,000 people are ever going to touch, and it's like it's really hard to get Grandmaster, and you have like an avatar behind it. Like those are like some of the fun little pieces of loot that the people who really dedicate a lot of time to the game want to get, and it takes less time to get them, and that's a good thing. But it takes the same amount of time to get some of the best stuff, and that's also a good thing. But you still get some of the really cool stuff, like that's it. I mean, there's not a lot to elaborate on at that point. And
there's even, sorry again to interrupt,
no, it's good.
But there's even a parallel with like this whole ranked ladder readjustment and this Wild Hunt tournament that we just saw, right? You can say the same thing, as they've opened it up and let people in, where before the only official LAN tournaments you have are top 8 of the pro ladder, and that's it. And you go from having this really cool thing that's awesome and amazing and everyone should be able to experience, and you lock it off for a very, very, very small subset of the population. Same thing with the borders and the avatars, right? So now when you allow these kind of open lands to come in, anyone can join, you know, people get this great experience and they want to come out and experience these things. I mean, we saw a great response to the Wild Hunt. We saw lots of people showing up. We saw lots of people watching, lots of people supporting. And just the fact that the game is becoming more open and less, you know, exclusive, I think that's a really good thing, you know, in all facets.
Yeah, I think that this is exactly the type of thing that you really do want to listen to your feedback about. Like, they did it in such a perfect way that so many more people get to experience these borders while you still get paid off and go have the look at me moment for finishing in the top 100, the top 1,000. You still have all this exclusive stuff. It's just more of the people get to play with more of the toys. And I think it's great. Grandmaster definitely is easier to hit this season than it's ever been before. I've had multiple people on my stream come to me, hey Joe, you know, I was using your list, or I was using this Untitled deck and I finally got Grandmaster for the first time. It was so cool. It was so awesome. And it's just really good to see people excited about Gwent, excited about climbing in the ranks, excited to feel that sense of progression, that it's not just stagnating. You know, this is something they've been wanting to achieve for a while. You had to lower it because of, you had to lower it a little bit at least because of the 1 month instead of 2. But yeah, I think overall it is a great thing for people to strive for.
So, JoeSnow, as I probably would correctly assume, as a hardcore player, as you're top 3 in North America right now and within the top 100 global, you are. You think it's fine to have a little bit more accessibility to these things?
Yeah, see, I don't think that it's a bad thing that if there's one point you can argue, maybe Grandmaster is a slight bit too easy. I think it needed to ease up a little bit. Now, whether they hit it perfect on the first try, I'm not 100% sure. Like, you could see, I don't think the 4,500 was correct given the 1 month season. This feels closer to correct than me. Absolutely optimal, probably lies somewhere in between. But to me, that's sort of like a nitpick, because I think so many of the changes they made centered around these rewards, centered around rejuvenating the game, getting people excited again. Which is what this game needs, and I just think that the large majority of these changes is so good. And me, now I'm striving for my top 100 board. I get that. I'm a happy dude. You know, I proved that I had a nice little season. I got my border to tell the tale, and let everyone experience some of these sweet toys too.
Yeah, you're 83 at the moment, so I think you might be safe. I mean,
I'm hoping, man. I'm hoping.
It's really condensed, man. It's like that.
I
was
79 when we started this cast.
So funny, man. So, speaking of things that are rejuvenating the game and things that are coming in to get people more excited, the arena approaches. The PTR was live over the weekend. A lot of people were streaming it. You know, there was a lot to see. It wasn't just the Wild Hunt tournament. It was also arena PTR. And some people were, you know, live from the mansion playing it. I know Swim. I tried to play it. My laptop wasn't great. Greyboxer got a chance to play a little bit of it. Pumpkin and Swim were playing it. And, of course, lots of people played it over the weekend. The PTR is now closed. The finishing touches are being put on, and we'll be playing it tomorrow. It's Wednesday. The rank season's going to close, and I believe the arena doors will open. I'm going to start with Flake on this one. How excited are you for arena, and are you going to be playing it like nonstop, or are you kind of still more of a constructed fan? What's your stance on the whole thing? Where are you coming from?
I've always liked the uncertainty and the access to the whole sandbox of arena, which is fantastic. And I didn't have access to the PTR for arena. I didn't get to play as much with it as, you know, some others did. But coming from other games, like from Hearthstone, I was very much into arena. I enjoyed it a lot. The only reason I didn't play it as much was because I didn't really want to devote too much actual money to buying arena tickets. And I found the rewards that I would get from that game, I would prefer to use them for packs. Whereas in Gwent, I think that there's a lot more generosity in terms of free to play and earning those rewards. So I think that moving forward, I love constructed, but I think that myself as a pro, a non-competitive player, I don't do pro ladder. I mean, I usually reach my rank 20, push Grandmaster, and then I'm content where I am. Mm-hmm. I think that this is something moving forward that I will be focusing the majority of my streaming on because of the entertainment factor, which is more or less what myself as a streamer, as a Gwent streamer, has always had the focus on versus the high level of play. We can't all be blessed with, Joe's skill level, his entertainment factor, his good looks. We can't have it all. So for someone like myself, I have to sort of
tear
say,
to my eye, Flake.
right? Exactly. It has to be at a certain point. Something like Arena is definitely going to open up, from an entertainment aspect. As a viewer, it's going to be better for Gwent, and as a casual player to just go ahead and try some wacky stuff, this is going to be fantastic. And I think that I'm going to definitely be focusing most of my gameplay and streaming on Arena.
Yeah, because it's good for streamers, right? It's a highly variable game mode where all sorts of crazy crap can happen in any single game, and drafting decks is a lot of fun as well. And we have seen almost everything to do with it. We've watched people play full runs on the PTR, but one thing we haven't seen is maybe rewards, or like a reward system, like something that maybe long-term Arena players would get if they played a lot of Arena, like kind of like how we have rewards for people who play a lot of ranked and do very well. Shu, do you think there's going to be a reward system that we haven't seen yet, like something like special Arena borders or special Arena titles? I mean, it's possible that they just haven't shown anything off yet, but it could be part of this build. I hope that it is. And also the same question to you, are you pumped about Arena?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea that I haven't heard anywhere. Sort of Arena exclusive borders or titles, maybe for going 9-0, going 9 wins. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of people can get behind, and definitely a unique idea. I haven't heard that anywhere. But for me personally, I think I'm excited for Arena, but not so much excited for myself, but more excited for the game and the community. Just for me personally, I dabbled in it a little bit at the Gwent Mansion, and it wasn't something that I'm personally too much into. It didn't really seem like there's much opportunity there for like the high level, macro strategies or things like that in the game that you find with ranked. And, that's okay. Like every game mode doesn't have to be constructed or ranked mode. Just like, we want a certain thing for that. There are other people that want other things. And I think that's good for the game that they're kind of expanding and growing. And, we can have all our wackiness and fun in Arena and maybe some more serious fun in ranked. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hearthstone notoriously does not have like special trinkets and rewards for doing well in Arena. They keep track of this kind of stuff, and there are people that are known for playing Arena, but there isn't like, I don't even know if they even have a card back for that kind of thing. Like, it's pretty wild that they've at no point ever introduced anything. And it's possible that Gwent may do the same thing, because the thing about Arena is that it is highly RNG related. The deck you draft might not be very good. The fact that it isn't competitive and it is fun, maybe they might stay away from offering too many exclusive rewards or too like top tier, like a 9-0 reward, because you might just get so frustrated that you got totally RNG'd out of a 9-0 or totally RNG'd out of a 9-win run, and that was why you didn't get your border. But I mean, at the same time, I think it would be great if there was some sort of rewards for doing well in Arena. I feel like there might be kind of a polarizing opinion about this kind of thing. I don't know. Flake, say something. You look like you have something to add.
Well, see, it's just because as soon as you introduced some type of reward system to it, your thought process immediately went towards like a salty outcome, or So I think that Arena is perfectly fine without that kind of ladder or system, because that's when people start getting really pissed off about bad outcomes or RNG or this or that. Whereas Arena, if it's just isolated as as being a fun sort of sidebar to actual competitive or casual Gwent, then you can just eliminate it, because taking that loss off of a miracle play won't have the same sting as if, like you said, oh, now I can't get my 9-0. I went 8-0. I don't have that one loss under my belt now because someone runestoned into a this, into a that, into a this, into a that, and then it was just chaos all over the board. And F this, and you flip the table and you walk away for a bit and say you're never going to play the game again until you're back there 2 minutes later trying again. That said, is there something that can be done to kind of make it a little bit more competitive? Sure. I know that Hearthstone has a ranking system for, the highest win total, the highest average win rates per month from Arena runs, which I think that could be something that could be implemented. But from a reward aspect, I don't think that they should really give something along the lines of, I think 9-0 is something that's definitely fresh and cool, but maybe not, here's a border for every month, because that's when people start getting a little bit too crazy and hectic about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I was thinking like every month, but maybe like just like little things you can pick up, or maybe even like, you know, every time you finish a run, regardless of your score, you have a chance of scoring some like piece of loot. Like maybe there's like a couple of borders littered around there. Joe, as someone who plays a lot of high intensity games, are you looking forward to Arena to be kind of like a cooling off, like a mist tent on a hot summer's day, perhaps?
I mean, you just put it perfectly, right? As a streamer, I love this so much. I just can't even put into words. Like the first week or two, yeah, I'm going to be playing all Arena all day. A, that's all anyone's going to want to see. B, I am pumped to get my hands on this, jam out, figure stuff out, learn the whole mode, have a blast. Just an entirely new way to play Gwent is very exciting. Long term for me, because I am a competitive player and I do want to focus on these high finishes and building decks and trying to break the meta and that type of deal. This seems like the perfect thing after, you went on a 5 blue coin losing streak, things are not going well, you just tanked off 100 MMR. Instead of spewing off more MMR or ending the stream early, why don't you go have fun in the arena where madness, anything can occur, 20 gold, shoop deck, you know, just all sorts of nonsense all the time. I think this mode's going to be incredible for highlight reels. You're going to see some great stuff on the Dandelion show. You're going to see card interactions you've never seen before. People are just going to slam stuff on the table, have no idea what it's going to do because you've just never seen these interactions before. I don't think it should get too competitive because, A, the RNG, but to me it's more like I have no idea what's in your hand, so I can never play around anything. So I'm not sure if me personally, I'm not going to treat it as a super competitive mode. I'm going to be out there trying to get my 9 wins like everyone else, but I don't think it has the backbone to become something ultra competitive. Fresh mist on a hot summer day, man. There you go. That's Arena for me.
And it's coming up soon, and it's going to come with it 10 new cards. So there's two things I wanted to talk to you guys just kind of in the back half of the podcast is the new cards and any potential of it affecting constructed play, because I think even though the 10 cards aren't, you know, the most spectacular cards we've ever seen, I think there's probably 2 or 3 there that could change kind of a lot of the ways we approach deck building for some factions, and there's a couple of cool neutral cards as well. But I also kind of want to talk about just a couple of decks that we saw at Wild Hunt, some decks that, you know, in this new meta, you know, even though Challenger Qualifiers just happened, as far as like big time tournaments, this one was pretty high up there. You know, we had some really, really good players that were playing it, and there was a really long write-up by the winner, Trinet, on Reddit, where he addressed some of the decks that he brought, and I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit on the strategy section just right after this.
Maybe not today and not tomorrow, but someday someone will find a way to take you down.
All right, so 10 new cards are coming to Gwent, and we'll have a chance to get our hands on them, I believe, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then on Thursday. I believe the cards are probably going to get implemented when Arena gets implemented, and I am almost certain that it all happens on the 28th, but I could be wrong. But there are some interesting cards. I don't want to talk too much about the cards as far as like piece by piece, because we did that on the last podcast when we got a chance to see them. There has been a change to Roach Merciless in that they took away the high upside to him and kind of left him just the card's not. I hope they maybe revisit this card, because I think maybe we can talk about how bad this card is. Maybe that's what we can do, because I think that
they were merciless.
Yeah, they were merciless with when they took away a benefit, an upside of this card, which was a draw card stipulation condition, which is overpowered, I think, in this game. Even if it was so incredibly niche, then that it destroys a face down ambush unit. They buffed him up to 6 strength. He still destroys a face-down ambush unit. He's a Northern Realms only card, but he's only going to see play out of Uma against Scoia'tael in a weird situation, because no one's going to run this card in Constructed, and I don't even think anybody's going to pick him in Draft. If anybody has anything else to add about that, but I think that this change just makes it it's too bad that this is a card that we're getting, I think, is just basically how I feel about it. I don't know. Joe, what do you think about Roach Merciless and this change and just the fact that it's being added?
It's not good in any way, right? Before, it was going to be a terrible card that did nothing 90% of the time, and 10% of the time randomly won you the game. And now it's a card that 100% of the time does nothing. I don't think it's really great to exist in either form, particularly. Like, you know, exchanging a card for a card while putting points on the table and drawing a card really, really punishes ambush, and if you get that proc off, it's going to be very, very hard to lose the game, right? That's something on the order of like a +11 to +15 strength spy. Something like that is completely obscene and is going to win you a lot of games. And the other mode on it, the 90% mode of that card, was do nothing. So I don't think it particularly should have existed there. Now they've changed the card so 100% of the time it does nothing. I don't know. It's going to be a really sad pull for newer players and their opening keg gold slots. Like I'm just not a fan of this type of thing.
Yeah, or the special premium legendary you get from the starter pack where you don't even have a choice. Oh no, you do have a choice. You do have a choice for that too. Shue, I wanted to ask you. I saw some recommendations from we're all in our own way armchair developers, sometimes armchair designers, and there is a really popular suggestion that Vernon can do what he does, but also have a secondary effect, like do something like pull a Bronze Temerian, or just generally a secondary effect. Much like, I guess the foil to this would be Letho Kingslayer, which I think is a great card that I've never played, but I would consider drafting it in Arena as a tactic tutor. Do you think that Vernon just needs a secondary effect, or do you think that it just needs a total revisiting, or maybe a massive strength boost to be good?
Yeah, I think I would probably err on the side of a total revisiting. I think even if you give it some sort of secondary effect, you just end up with a gold Cyprian Wiley, back when his ability was destroy ambushes, and I'm not too keen on that. I'm also a little bit worried about the whole design direction of this Roach Merciless and, to a lesser extent, the Geralt Monster Hunter, where you're putting in these cards in the game that are like hard counters to a very certain specific strategy. In the game where we already don't see ambush really being like a top tier strategy, that you're going to go ahead and put in just like a hard hate card against them to that. It makes me a little nervous. We've seen other games do it. I think like Hearthstone, they have the infamous crabs, and although it's a little bit different, I'd still just be worried and hope that they tread lightly when implementing these sorts of hard counters into the game.
Well, in this case, the hard counter takes a gold slot, whereas in Hearthstone, it just takes one of the 30 cards in your deck. So I feel like it's so unappealing you would need to see. I don't even know if the percentage is even high enough that I would include one of these cards. Like ambush could be 75% of my games, and I think I still wouldn't play it because I wouldn't want to just have it dead gold in the other 25% of my games. And maybe I'm crazy to say this, but I just don't.
The old Roach, I think you would.
Well, with the old Roach, maybe, because it's like if you're playing to abuse the coin flip, which is 50-50, you play to abuse a 75% matchup. So maybe I am exaggerating a little bit of hyperbole, but the card is just so bad. Flake, as far as this card, and maybe to a lesser extent, Geralt Monster Hunter, which I don't even think Geralt Monster Hunter is good enough. I think Eskel is like better than it in almost on average in any matchup. Like there's just not a monsters card that's so dominant, that's so high strength that you would ever pick this, even in a monster dominated meta. Do you agree with that, Flake, or do you think that I'm concerned that they're just bad cards going into the card pool?
Well, I was kind of trying to concoct a scenario in my mind where playing this card would actually be not just a great decision, but an okay decision, one that won't get you laughed out of the game kind of thing. And I was thinking how polluted the meta would have to be with ambush decks that this is actually an okay inclusion into your deck. Like we just came off of an imbalanced dwarven meta where there was tons and tons of dwarves where people would complain every second deck I play is against a Broover deck. And if that card was destroy a silver dwarf, and maybe that would be okay, but this is like not even that bad. I don't know. Like I do not see a scenario where even if 60% of the meta was ambush, that would be better than other cards. And from the Geralt Monster Hunter card, you're dealing 4 damage. That's fine. It's an 11 point gold at its worst. But again, how bad does a monster meta have to be where that's better than, let's say, like an Igni inclusion, or is Osril going to be just that insane every single time that you have to do it? I don't think we've had this discussion where games need bad cards kind of in a sense, like to a degree.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think in these positions, you know, like these are just epically bad.
Yeah.
Like I can see where there might be where Joe was saying a 90% low roll on the card, but the 10% high roll is game breaking. And I can see that in certain scenarios, you might want to take that risk where it's not an auto win, but it'll get you there. And they just eliminated that aspect from Roche, and now it's just like Joe says, it's a laughable card, and may God have mercy on the soul of the person that gets that as some type of, you know, reward. Like if you go 9-0 in Arena, don't you get a premium gold, right?
And I don't think you can pick that one. So yeah,
no,
you
you
could get
can't,
that.
and that's get ready for
You're
the
just
Reddit
like,
posts on that one.
So
Do you think
bittersweet.
you guys would run Roach in the midwinter meta if he was exactly the same, but instead of an ambush, it was a dwarf?
Yeah, banish a dwarf.
Would you guys run him?
Ooh, that's difficult,
Seriously,
right?
though, like how bad does the meta have to get? It's kind of an interesting thought experiment, right?
Well, that's what we were saying, right? I was going down
is
that route about just mentioning how bad the meta has to be to play something that is so targeted that you know. But even then, is the swing even that big of a deal? I mean, is it?
It's
that
not.
huge? No,
I mean,
The tempo was
It's
so
not
high,
at
you had such a
5
hard.
strength banished
Go ahead.
Dwarf's barely even playable. Sorry, McBeard.
No, I'm just saying, like, the tempo of that deck was so high that it could just get away with murder all the time. So, like, sure, you kill Polly's resurrected target if Polly wasn't already the last play that you couldn't answer in the first place. But, you know, there was more. There was, like, you know, there was Hattori before that, and there was, you know, Ithlin earlier on. Like, there was just so many ways that deck was kicking the crap out of people. So, if it was, like, banish a dwarf, yeah, probably. But not, I don't know if it just destroy a dwarf.
I changed my mind, McBee. I think that you should get rewards from Arena, and it should be a special trinket or border for getting a premium Roche out of a 9-0 Arena run. I think that's what it is.
You should get something else because it just wouldn't be satisfying enough to get it.
Yeah, high roll that. That's what you should high roll.
Yeah, I mean,
dust, baby.
Yeah, I think that Geralt Monster Hunter would only be good if there was some sort of first turn giant toad problem. Like, I think even Ozrael is countered by Blackblood. If Ozrael was so rampant, you could at least destroy it with Blackblood or something like that, and then Alchemy would probably be more dominant than that deck in the first place, because that's the deck that runs Blackblood. So, I mean, it's like there's already hate cards out there. It would be awesome if Geralt Monster Hunter did something with, like, cursed units or beasts or something that was maybe just a larger spectrum, so you could at least justify more application for it. And then it was something closer to kind of like, again, at Letho Kingslayer, how you can at least, you know, kill a leader and get huge value out of it if you can't play the tactic or you're not building a deck around it, or using it as a tutor for the tactic. So I think yeah.
I was gonna say he can't even attack or he can't even target Arrakis Queen, right? Like if Consume was just out of control and they're just, you know, they go on a whole run of eating a crap ton of Neckers and you have like a 35-point Arrakis Queen, that's just still protected, is it not?
Yeah, you can't target.
Touch it.
What is this card? Why does it exist?
It doesn't do anything. The problem with these cards is there's a ton of risk associated with them, and the payoff isn't even that good. You want risk in your Gwent cards. That's if you don't put risk in your cards, that's how we end up with stuff like dwarves, just throwing a bunch of points down that work at any time of the game. But with risk should come reward, and you're just not getting it there. There are so many more flexible tools. Like I think it was McBeard that said, like, Eskel's a very similar card. Not seeing a ton of play right now, but much less risky. You also have Igni. Igni handles a lot of the situations if you're trying to use this on a giant Vran warrior or things like that. So when is this card ever, quote unquote, good if you could just create it, let's say, out of thin air? When you have like a 22 strength Ozrael on a row by itself, yeah, you're getting some value. How often do these scenarios come up versus how often are these cards just almost stone cold blanks for the slot they're taking up in your deck? And you're just, with a lot of them, you're never hitting that proper balance of risk versus reward. And I think that when you're analyzing cards and trying to figure out where they could see play and stuff, you can't analyze them in a vacuum. You have to analyze them by their competition. And the competition, even for these type of cards, are effects that are almost strictly better not seeing any play. Take it, let's say if it was 5 strength banish a dwarf, the Poly example you guys were talking about earlier, that wouldn't have done anything. It doesn't even kill the Poly. So, like, even if you get to hit, you are exchanging a gold for a silver at +2 value. Like, it doesn't exactly feel like you're living the dream. You're not getting the payoff that you're looking for.
Absolutely. I mean, so that's talking about maybe the bad cards. I also think the Yennefer Necromancer is also a very underwhelming gold card when it comes to, like, when you compare it to something like Vicuvaro Medic. Like, it just doesn't seem like there's a soldier that's good enough that you would use a gold slot and construct it to ever play this card. And I also don't think that I mean, it doesn't take up a gold slot in Arena, so there is more, like, there's a higher likelihood that you'd be able to do something like take a Bearmaster, and that's probably okay. But I just think that it needs something more. I mean, these are supposed to be Arena cards. I think that Yennefer Necromancer and Geralt will more likely obviously see. I think Roach Merciless is just kind of not going to see play anywhere. But Yennefer Necromancer, I think, I don't know. It would have to be up against some pretty bad choices. Do you think it's like going to be a decent pick at all, or do you think that card is really lacking as well?
I think it's fine. She's the kind of card that's just fine. Maybe you get a pile with some really synergistic golds, right? It's the end of your run. You don't have any bronze spells. You come up with like an Ithlan and something else. She's just a fine card to take when some of the other options rely on synergies that maybe you weren't able to draft. Another thing is a lot of the golds in this game are very bomby, so it's my gut feeling, and I don't have any inside information on this, that some of these more generic, bland-feeling golds, like Yennefer Necromancer, which I actually think is completely fine, were introduced to lower the overall power level of some of the golds that you're going to hit to make the games not play out just bomb, 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 bomb all the time. I think it's very good to have cards like this in the mode, these sort of generic, slightly above power level for, normal cards in your deck, because being gold really isn't a drawback, right? It's just all about how many of them you draft. There's no actual drawback to them being gold, like only putting 4 in your deck at this point. So I think cards that are just slightly above rate and not huge bombs definitely have a place in this mode. So I'm totally okay with Yennefer Necromancer. I like it from a design perspective.
Shu, why do you think that monsters and ambush and soldiers were targeted specifically? Like, what do you think it is about those cards? Do you think it's like more of like there's a broad spectrum there? I mean, ambush feels very razor thin, but soldier spans across 4 different factions. Like, design wise, I feel like it could have been so many other things at the same time. Like, is soldiers the most frequent tag you might encounter?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. There are a lot of soldiers in other factions, like Scoia'tael and Skellige have a lot of soldiers too. I think maybe with the whole targeting thing that they were going for, like when they introduced a lot of these create cards to the game in the Midwinter update, their big reasoning was it's for the new game mode, right? That's what we heard from them, straight from the developers. And we saw a lot of backlash from people when now these cards are being used in ranked at very high levels in the best decks. So maybe it could be sort of thing where, okay, they're trying to introduce these arena cards, but make them kind of specific where they only get used in arena. Like something like soldiers or monsters, there's a lot of, when you have an arena that's open to all factions drafting cards, it's not super difficult to find, a monsters card or a soldier card. Ambush maybe a little more specific, so I'm not too sure about that one, but I think it's kind of their attempt to make these cards specific enough where they can find value in arena and be decently useful in an open draft system, but not really have too big of an effect on the ranked ladder.
Flake, what is there a card that we haven't talked about that you're very excited about or you're very interested in seeing? Because there's a couple of really interesting ones. We talk a lot about the trash in the set, but we're talking about there's Imlerith Sabbath, there's Dandelion Poet, there's even the what I was figuring out I was calling it this when we were at the Gwent match, and the Ijarahua, because I hit that X like Mexico. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting cards out there that are coming. What are you most excited about trying out first?
Well, that's it. I actually wrote it down. I wrote Ihuaraquax. Sounds like what we all contracted at Gwent matches and are now suffering.
Speak for yourself.
I have a whooping Ihuaraquax, and unfortunately the podcast must go on. But I think that's a very interesting card, and I'm really excited to see a lot smarter people than me give this a go and see how this can become a viable solution. I mean, the upside to it is enormous, and this is what Joe was mentioning before about the rare, not rare instances, but the work up to having a card be absolutely enormous in terms of a swing. It starts off, it's a 7 base that hurts itself down to 2, so it's hyper vulnerable. But then immediately, once it's sort of healed back up to its base power, so you got to heal it by 5, and then it does 7. Bang, bang, bang. So it has an enormous upswing. It's a potential 28 point gold card, which would probably make it the biggest swing card in the entire game. But then there's the factors that arise around this card are just insane, because it's doing 7 damage to 3 random units. If anything on the board is below 7, you're losing value. You don't know where it's going. You need to make sure that your opponent has that, and you're leaving a 2-point card on the board without, on its own, and then you have to have sort of the fitting piece to heal it up afterwards. I think it's going to be something that people are definitely going to try to create some type of archetype around, or some type of, it could very well be a really, really fantastic late game finishing card. But you need the pieces, and I'm going out completely on a limb here. I don't think this card is ever going to see any type of competitive play after the first week or so of people play testing this. There's going to be a lot of people trying to make this card work, a lot of interesting theory crafting around this card, but I don't think that it's reliable enough that this is going to be something that people are going to include relatively often. Like, not you either center your entire strategy around it, or you cast it aside. Yeah,
people are talking about Stefan Skellen in this card being like wild and crazy, but I mean, at this point that would have been caught at this point. So I mean, you do have to you have to build your strategy around it. You would have to be able to reliably pull it off. Like, do you think that's a reliable thing that could be pulled off, or do you think that's anything that we should be concerned about, Joe or Shoe, or either?
I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. If that's how it works, yeah, sure. It'll be somewhat reliable. Nilfgaard's always really good at churning through their deck, hitting their key pieces. They have a ton of tools for doing this type of thing, and sure, the payoff could be there, so you don't have to leave that vulnerable 2-strength body and then try and heal it up with the shield smith, something like that. The thing with this is, as Watchflake was talking about, your opponent needs to have multiple mid to large size units on the board to even really achieve its true value. This doesn't do a whole lot when half the board is Elven Scouts and Slave Drivers. When you have a bunch of 1- and 2-strength bodies floating around, even the potential upside that you have to work for this card might not come through, because it's only going to be good in certain types of situations. I do like that it does have a very real upside if you can get it to work. It's going to make for some sweet moments. It's not just a 28-point card that you slam down in a 2-card round 3 and say, haha, I hit it with Skellen, here's all my points. It needs some things to go right for it, and I don't think it's particularly going to be a constructed bomb, but as far as card design, this card is like a home run. It just looks really cool, probably plays really cool. It does a lot of great stuff. I'm a fan.
Yeah, it could be like a Venendal Elite situation where people thought it was going to be busted, but it's actually like really hard to pull off like any sort of like, oppressive strategies with it. And I think that, that does make it good. I mean, there's so many 1s and 2s in this game. Like, you could whiff so hard with the Harawa, I think. And like Shoe,
I cannot say that word.
it's just what I call it. I mean, I think that the card would whiff too often, and I think that you'd be fine getting average gold value. But I mean, that's how I feel about it. Shoe, is there anything else you're excited about, or if you have any other points about that particular unicorn?
I think the card I'm most excited about is Dandelion Poet.
Mm-hmm.
I think this card is really, really good and maybe slept on a little bit. Like, people recognize that it's a good card, but I don't think people are talking about just how good it could possibly be. I mean, you look at something like John Natalis, which is like a staple of Northern Realms, right? One of their best golds. And you're kind of throwing that into every faction almost with Dandelion Poet, right? It does a similar thing. You're drawing a card, you're playing one. So you get thinning, you get a gold body, like multiple bodies that could be important.
Mm-hmm.
You're just taking a card from your deck, adding 5 to it. Like, that's really good. And I think that he'll find a place in a lot of decks.
Yeah. Dandelion Poet, it seems like just legitimately a good card, just strong, right? Just kind of Vilgefort's-esque in that it's a gold body that pulls another card. And then you can play anything from your hand, so you don't even need to like hope to draw something specifically. You could already have a plan. to play the next card, and you just makes that plan better. You add Roach to your deck, you can do stuff with that. It's an excellent thinning and cycling card. There's like almost nothing bad to say about it. It's just you need to have a better gold to. You need to have like some very specific 4 gold strategy, I feel like, to not consider Dandelion in almost any deck. For me, I'm really excited about Imlerith Sabbath. This card, it seems just amazing. Like I saw a little bit of it in practice in some of the arena games that some people were playing, like in a situation where somebody maybe drops a Vriad Dragoon, let's say, an 8-strength engine. Imlerith comes out, takes out the trash, and then he's ready to go for the next duel. He can just take care of that no problem because he's got the armor on it, and then he has more armor next. But what I'm really excited about is playing a Wild Hunt deck maybe that uses Longships as a base on the board, and then he comes down and he starts off even higher off. And you can just make him that much better over time. I don't know if in practice that's going to be, but I feel like as far as like constructed deck building exercise, this is the one that I'm going to be spending the most time right away with. I think that at first when I looked at it, I didn't know if it was going to be all that good, but I think now that I've seen it work, and he keeps dueling, right? He just keeps going.
Every turn.
Man, he just seems it's just so cool. And I think Monster's really got the coolest faction card. Saris has some pretty cool flavor too, but she has to be on the board and stay on the board, and she's kind of like a succubus level of get rid of it and it's not a problem kind of thing. So I don't know about that. I don't know about Saris being that great, but I think that Imlerith is, you get payoff right away, and you create a threat for your opponent that's a very real threat to the well-being of that round that requires some answering. And I don't think it's bad that it's removable with like a Thunder or whatever, because it's going to still, he's going to Selkirk something away. Kind of, it's a similar situation. You drop Selkirk takes care of business, and then that's it. But Imlerith remains on the board and is going to still remain to be a threat. So it demands removal, but it also gets removal done at the same time. I'm a huge fan of that card. Any final touches from the three of you about Flake? You have something to say about any of these cards that we haven't talked about?
So this card actually made me, it reminded me of back in the day in closed beta when there was Yennefer Conjurer, when she was a 5-spot gold. And this card is something where you'll play it, and if your opponent doesn't have an immediate answer to it or a way to sort of get around it, that is enough to sort of get them out of the round and say, I don't want to deal with it, take the round and drop that card, and it's fine. Yennefer Conjurer was one of the reasons why back in closed beta, I used to play Vernon Roche in my Northern Realms deck, because it was a gold card that did damage to another gold card just to get it off the board. So this could be the card that people start to tech a little bit against or deal with. And if they're not, then it might force people out of rounds. It could be one of those behavioral determining kind of, changes the way that you build decks, changes the way that you consider the meta. Because even though it's one card in one particular deck, it's so universally good if unanswered that it can completely ruin your day. Because even if you can maybe have an answer to it or start to deal with it, if you spend 2-3 turns trying to get rid of it and you can't, you've just wasted so much time and so much resources trying to get rid of it, and then you're still well behind and it's still going strong. This could be that Yen Con of old that just pushes you out of a round if you don't have an immediate answer to it.
Yeah, this is the best design card in all of Gwent. Yes, it does function like Yen, and yes, it can push your opponent out of the round. But Yen wasn't counterable. Golds were immune back then. This card, what are the counters to this card? Basically, any sort of targeted removal can get it right off the board. Or just playing a big unit. And then if you play a giant unit that this can't survive the next duel with, I have this sweet sub-game of trying to then lower its strength into Imlerith's range so he can survive another turn. It makes you play different. It makes me play different. This is basically the perfect card. And it gets enough value on the way in, as McBeard was saying, this is great coming down, killing a Dragoon, and then can you deal with me? So it'll justify its slot as a gold. It will be able to get some amount of value coming in. It creates a persistent threat for your opponent, but it's not a persistent threat that's unanswerable. All the tools to answer this card, basically any sort of removal and or a giant large unit, are cards that people are already playing anyway. So it just creates this really interesting sub-game within the game of Gwent, within the round of Gwent, that I think the game needs so much more of, and I just, words can't. I'm so excited to play this card. minute one, I will be playing with this card.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that a lot of the most polarizing cards in Gwent have always been cards that warp the board state, like Villain Trettenmirth does, like Yennefer Conjurer does, where everything you do from that point forward is revolving around the effect of that card coming down. Yorveth Meditation kind of did that as well. And kind of like Yorveth Meditation, Shue, I remember we did a co-op stream one day. We were talking about playing dwarves just before dwarves became like their apex of popularity. You were talking about Randy of Sintra, like trying out this new dwarf list. Let's give it a shot. I crafted all the cards. We gave it a shot. And we were talking about how hyped we were, how cool Yorveth Meditation was, because it was like a thinking man's gold card. And then people started to hate that card because it ended up being it was cool and it was a thinking man's card, but it was just so good in so many situations that it ended up being too good. Do you think Imlerith Sabbath has any risk of being too good? Or do you think that it's very well designed, like Joe was suggesting, that it might walk the line of being very good, but also very answerable?
I really love the duel mechanic. I think that as far as just design standpoint, it's super well designed, super interesting, and it kind of is what I think of when I think of Gwent, like super strategical, very interesting effect. That being said, duel is pretty tough because it does walk a fine line of balancing. You know, it's very hard to balance these cards. We see even with something like Selkirk, where recently that got buffed by 1 point. You know, you put 1 point on a dual card, it's kind of like getting buffed, you know, maybe even 2 or 3 points. You know, you get the one additional point of damage, and even being able to remove bigger things like or weaken an enemy card by 1 less, that's kind of additional value too, because then it's hitting you less strong. So, you know, I think it's very tough to balance these cards, and I've already seen some arena games where that thing just gets out of control real quick. So I definitely say it's possible that card will be a bit busted, and they'll have to be really careful with balancing it, because again, you can pull it out with something like Royal Decree. You can do some sort of buff to it and it'll just keep chugging along. It's pretty insane if you get that card to stick and get going.
Well, I hope it's okay. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about that I think we may be running out of time for, because I do want to talk to the chat, and we've been going for about an hour and a quarter now, so we're going to talk to the chat. But one thing I wanted to point out, if you're interested in kind of recapping a very well written up experience about the Wild Hunt Philly and the decks that were played by the champion Trinet123. He wrote a very, very in-depth Reddit post about how he feels about Gwent and the best deck and the decks that he brought and what he feels like are the best decks in the game. And I did want to talk a little bit about that, but I think that we can maybe just drop that link in the show notes. You should check it out. He played a very interesting Axeman deck that kind of takes away all the weaknesses of a traditional Axeman deck and just goes ahead and just really kind of puts Axeman into a very strong Dimin-based Skellige deck. He played a very good Deathwish Dagon, a Spies that was very tournament-focused in that it was supposed to make your opponent think that it was alchemy, and then finally Mulligan Elves that we're all very familiar with. But he does an incredible write-up about all of these things and links to all of his decks, and I'll be dropping that in the show notes. And he also talks about every single round he played. It's really good. It's definitely worth checking out, worth your time. It's a real book, but you got to check that out. But I would like to throw it to the chat. You have a panel of hosts right here on the podcast. If you have anything you'd like to ask us, anything you'd like to address in the chat about what we talked about, anything about the new cards, arena mode, Wild Hunt, let us know. We're going to just segue out here for the community break, and we'll be talking to you guys right after this. My friends, we are supported by our commandos. Our patrons at patreon.com/commandershorn. Thanks so much to all of our patrons across the world, keeping the mics on and supporting our content. We have a great question from Rendusi, who actually was at Wild Hunt as well, who said that she actually played against a Shoop Monsters deck at one point in the Swiss, asking when Thrilling will be on Commander's Horn again. I'll let her know that she has a fan out there. The Thrilling, the door is open for the Thrilling, but she's more of a behind-the-scenes helper, and she's expressed that. But she'll be on again if she wants to be on, and I imagine that we'll be doing another more of a roundtable episode in the future. But no, I would love to. We had a great time hanging out with the Thrilling. You all got to know the Thrilling. She's really good. She helped admin the tournament. She helped admin Wild Hunt. She streams definitely most Saturdays. She calls it Catterday. So she does stream a lot. Yeah, and she plays Monster Hunter with us as well. The Thrilling is one of the best people that we had a chance to meet and hang out with. It's my second time hanging out with her. I hung out with her at TwitchCon. Nothing but good things to say about the Thrilling. And of course you guys got to meet her as well, I imagine.
Yeah, she set up Gwent Mansion. Yeah. I mean, the hero of the weekend.
Yeah, that's exactly hero of the weekend. Definitely helped with Gwent Mansion and all that stuff as well. What else is going on? Chat. Not the flood of questions I was imagining, but you guys are talking about. Are you guys talking about duels? You guys talking about duels? So I think one of the things that came up. DG Thunder actually was talking about this during my stream today. Felt that duel might be. Is a tough mechanic to balance because a single point means so much in duel. But generally as a mechanic, like, we're on board, right? It's one of the coolest things they added to Gwent. When lots of things have been kind of removed here and there, row locks and some of the stuff with like self wound, like just stuff that I'm just thinking about off the top of my head. Duel we have a warm welcome to duel. What do you think about that?
I definitely do. I think duel would be unbalanceable, as some people are suggesting, had they not introduced armor into the game.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you can have, because it's two different type of points, right? You need to manage the amount of damage output it's going to have on its first swing, while being able to separately manage the input of damage it's able to take on the first swing back. So yes, I think the numbers might be a little bit difficult to get right, particularly on first tries, but I think having armor as a mechanic in this game really allows for duel to shine, and once you hit that sweet spot, you're just going to come up with some awesome cards, because it lets you balance these cards in super unique ways where, where Selkirk's an 8 with 3 armor, you couldn't just have that card be an 11. It's very, very different. It functions differently as an 8 with 3 armor, and I really like that about it.
Yeah, you get to, different knobs you can turn. There's armor, there's strength, and there's timers as well. And I think that hopefully we can always find sweet spots there. Here's a question from Interin saying, I heard there'd be no balance changes on the arena patch. Don't you guys think that some balance changes are needed? The devs seem happy with the current state, no nerfs or buff. I'm gonna throw this one to you, Shu. I think that the meta is actually in a really good spot right now. I feel like nothing is too dominant. Like, obviously at the top of the ladder, there are things that are very strong. Like Henselt is doing really good work right now at the top of the ladder, and I know that Bran is very good. I know that Mulligan has been good for a little bit, but I don't know if balances should be like maybe the #1 priority right now. I don't know if you think that are things maybe okay right now. Maybe the introduction with new cards might be enough to shake things up.
I think, honestly, the game is in a really good spot right now, like you said. I think all factions have a deck that is very competitive. Skellige, Great Swords, Bears, Skullhead's Hull is really good, Monsters has stuff, Nilfgaard, even Northern Realms with Henselt. I think if you are going to be doing some things with balancing, I would hope that they would take some lesser represented archetypes, or maybe some unfinished quote-unquote archetypes, and kind of give them a little bit of support and help they need. One interesting thing with the new cards is that I saw a comment that these 10 cards are going to complete the set, the quote-unquote core set. And that's kind of strange to me, because there's still a lot of stuff out there that's not really fleshed out. I mean, you look at Moonlight, you look at Vampires, you look at even kind of Northern Realms. Temerian synergy isn't super good right now. Curse too. So that's one of the things I would hope for, is that you kind of help out some of these archetypes that are hurting right now.
Yeah, like I think that if they were to change something like Yutta and Damoon, and they just like they basically, like, if they were to change her, they would be like introducing a new card. So it's like the core set is finished, but if they were to take these cards that are just kind of really left behind, like Yutta in this situation, I think that it would be like there's still cards to come for the core set. It's just right now they're sort of, I'm not going to say placeholder, but you know, a card like that, there's actually a Reddit thread right now that just compares the Encrate Warrior to Yetta, and it's like 1 point difference. It's a silver card. It does the same thing. Like there's got to be a revisiting to some of these cards for sure. There's not a lot left that need a revisiting. There's not a lot left that I think have that kind of left behind feeling, but that's like a real standout to me. That card has just always really it's a card that's always just kind of done nothing. It's just always just been a point card, and at least it had some sort of synergy with, you know, if the card is damaged, do this, but it's outclassed by so many other silvers in Skellige that, you know, it's just an outlier. Let's see, I got a question here from Plebber saying, what do you guys think about including more hard counter cards like New Roach? I mean, cards that are going mainly after one specific archetype, like Magic the Gathering did with some cards. Well, we kind of covered that. I personally think that I like Gwent's approach with cards. I've said it already like 3 times. Cards approach like Letho Kingslayer, where it does something very specific, but it also has this broader use, and there are different situations where the card has a topped out, like a ceiling value where, you know, I maybe don't have any tactics left in my deck, and maybe I can handle this other task that I have, or, you know, I'm presented with both options, but one is better. So it just makes it so it's less often to be a brick, where you also, on the other hand, you have cards like Succubus that does one thing really, really well, but is a weak card at the same time. So I feel like Roach does none of these things well, and that's the design issue that I have with Roach. And it also does something. It's the targeting is just so narrow that it's not good enough. Whereas Monster Hunter, at least Geralt Professional, at least has a wider range of things that it can do in a specific matchup. But there could even be Scoia'tael matchups where Roach doesn't get any value. Flake, do you think that hard countering is a good place to go? I feel like if it was going to go somewhere, maybe gold is not the place to start, gold cards. But I don't know if you have any outcry on that.
No, I completely agree with you in terms of the where those types of specific counters should exist. I believe that they should not exist in the gold slot unless there's an extra utility, like you mentioned. Like I'm not completely upset about Geralt Professional because it does have a kind of a silver lining to it with the 4 damage, so you're not completely losing out on it. Obviously, the 7-point body is not the most fantastic thing in the world, but I think that cards like this should have a place, just not existing in that slot, the 4 gold slot, because that's, I think, where they're never going to get played. If they existed as silver cards, someone might actually take gambles based on meta decisions to fill in a silver spot. If Geralt Professional was a silver card and the meta was very infested with monsters, I would actually consider doing it. It would possibly be something that you might slide in there because there's 6 spots, and given the fact that, you know, Summoning Circle is no longer an auto include in the whole the Spy Wars of old, that you could maybe even fit it in there. And unfortunately, that's not the case. It's a gold card. I like the fact that there are these high roll counter options, but I just think that, like you said, Roach is like the worst one. It's definitely the worst possible one because there's no upside at all. It targets one faction. It targets one type of card of that faction that, you know. So you're trying to roll Snake Eyes twice to get it to work, and that is very hard to do. But maybe if you're sort of giving up less of a more important card spot in your deck, then maybe it's a consideration based on meta. I just don't see it happening.
Fair enough.
The thing with Roach Merciless too is it's kind of like there's not even any thought behind it, you know? Like, take a tech card like Scorch. You have to figure out, okay, what matchups are this good in? What matchups do I want it? What do I not? I mean, Roach Merciless, it's just like, hint, hint, guys, those ambush cards, yeah, you don't want those around, right? I'd like some more, like, general kind of tech cards or something of that nature. Just me personally.
Yeah, something a bit more thought-provoking, perhaps.
Yeah, make the deck building process interesting, you know? That's what I'm looking for them to do.
All right. We'll take one more question here. Zanzam, I'm wondering what the group's take is on the bronze to silver to gold power ratio. Trinet noted in his Wild Hunt write-up that Restore is Siri Nova power with no drawback and a better spread out stats. He's talking about like a combo that you can pull with the Pirate Captain into Corsair into like the Warship. I think it's something like that. personally of the opinion that bronzes are approaching overtuned, I think is like the overall thing. I think that personally for me, I think that keeping the gap between bronze, silver, and golds closer and putting most of the synergy in the hands of the bronze cards is fine, because I've always felt like the people that draw the most golds winning, like that's kind of like an antiquated concept for me. Like just it's sometimes you can pull out wins without drawing well, and like drawing your gold cards very specifically. And if you need your gold cards, you have like cards like Royal Decree that make it a little bit more consistent. You have ways you can tune your deck around that kind of stuff. And I think that maybe there are some golds that are a little on the weak side, because bronzes need to be like 14 or 15 to be really standout, whereas golds need to be like above 20 to be really standout, and silvers kind of fall in between, tend to be more tech stuff, tend to be more matchup-based, meta-based stuff. I think that's okay for the most part. I don't think I'd want the gap to be any higher. If anything, I'd want bronzes to be on the lower side. We'll go around the panel for this last question. Joe, how do you feel about that statement that that bronzes might be overtuned?
Well, I think you put a lot of points very well there, actually. I largely agree with you. The gap should be there, but the gap should be reasonably small, because, I mean, you don't want people just winning these games because I drew more silvers than you and I drew more golds than you, therefore I just have more points than you. I think the delineation, they should be a little bit more powerful, but they should also have abilities that are more complex and more thought-provoking and do crazier things, maybe can warp a game state over time, things that won't appear on bronze cards. Maybe just from a design mechanic, these different designs show up on silver and gold. In the case of the actual restore that Zansa mentioned and was in Trinet's article, yeah, I mean, there's obviously a very strong argument to be said that certain silvers are overreaching, and maybe the large majority of bronzes are a little bit too high right now, and I think there's some truth to that. I actually don't think it's the large majority of bronzes. I think the bronzes that are just the ones that are seeing play. So yeah, I think there's some cards that are overreaching, but in general, I think that the gap is in a reasonably fine spot right now.
Shu, do you have a take on that one?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested at that guy's example, because he's talking about the power levels of bronzes compared to gold and silvers, but that whole combo is possible because of restore a silver card. So
yeah,
I don't even think it's so much that bronzes are way too strong. I think it's maybe seems that way just because a lot of times, like, there's a lot of kind of golds and silvers that got kind of left behind in the whole bronze power creep, which I think we all agree on is ultimately, in theory, a good thing, not make the game rely so much on drawing certain cards. But you have to make sure that all your silvers and golds are relatively balanced enough. And I think with like the gold immunity update and this whole bronze power creep, some of these cards got left behind. And I think that's where people kind of find the perception that maybe bronze cards are too powerful. They say, oh, look at my, Dwarven Skirmisher, it's 12 points. And then I'm playing my Geralt Monster Hunter, who is 11, and he's a gold card. What's up with that? And I think that might be where that perception comes from.
For sure. Flake?
I've had this conversation so many times about just the supreme power, and I think that the most offending meta was when, like Shu mentioned, you can just, to use a swim term, slam down a dwarf for X amount of points, and to use a Joe term, to jam some more points on the board. I'm so sorry. I just loved hearing you guys cast over the weekend. There was just those two words were so good to use. Anyway, that said, I don't mind the fact that these bronzes have these types of power potentials. And you're talking to the guy who plays Griffins onto Dows for 17 points and doesn't bat an eye, but complains when a dwarf hits the board and is an easy 13 or something, like a Dwarven Agitator that just chains off some crazy nonsense. I think the offending aspect of it is that there's these bronzes are allowed to be that kind of potential without any type of setup or without any type of ongoing sort of generation of power. That, like a card like the Dragoon, that card could potentially at the end of the day be worth 18 points for you, and no one would cause any issue, and it's because it's been on the board for so long, and you've given your opponent the opportunity to deal with it, and they've chosen not to. Therefore, the power sort of goes off over time. Same thing with trebuchets and etc. I think that putting a card on the board that is just an easy vanilla 12 to 13 points is kind of a problem, whereas chaining them or the synergizing those types of points, producing those points, putting the work in to get them, I think that's fine. I think there's no issues with that, because a smart player will be able to sort of identify when the card will be a problem. And I think that's why, many weeks ago when Death Wish wasn't as popular, I was getting away with playing DAOs and people leaving them on the boards thinking that they weren't necessarily problems, and they didn't want to waste resources killing it because they thought it was a negative play for them, when in reality it was an investment move. But when you have part A and part B and they come together to be more than the sum of their parts, I think that's okay. Whereas slapping down something that's just enormous on its own, that's when power creep really is offensive.
It's well put, guys. Well put. We're going to wrap this up. I think this is a great podcast. Great to be joined by the two of the three hosts of the Grandmaster Plan podcast. The third host, of course, being True Dawn, friend of the show. And but I would like to know. We'll start with Joe. Where can people find you when you are streaming? When you are doing your thing? Where can people find you?
Well, this is actually really exciting because normally, up until just a couple of hours ago, I would say you can find me at my stream, twitch.tv/JoeSnow, Owen Snow being 0. Check out my YouTube, and then someone would meme about me not having a Twitter. Well, boys, it has finally happened. JoeSnow at JoeSnow has a Twitter. It is up and running. Still needs some work. Just went up and running tonight. It's even got a picture of me there. It's the same one as Twitch. You can't miss my ugly mug. I'll be right there at JoeSnow. The O is still a 0. Come find me on Twitter. I now have one, boys.
The Owen Snow is a 0, but the Owen Joe is an O.
Owen Snow is a 0, correct. And if I can, just a quick shout out, if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
I would love to shout out Quill and Lance, fellow TopDeck member. He's been helping me design some emotes for my stream, and he even helped me resize my Twitter image today. He's a great Hensel player, fellow streamer. Go ahead, check this guy out. He is awesome and super helpful. So yeah, just wanted to shout Quill out there real quick.
Awesome shout out to Quill and Lance. There you go, JoeSnow. The O is a 0 in snow, and he has Twitter finally. So now next time you cast, it's not going to say #NoTwitterBoy.
Yeah, I didn't know about that till like halfway through the cast.
Oh, it was good. It was good stuff. Shu, what about you? Where can people find you when you're doing your thing?
Yeah, you could find me Twitter at ShoePlays, twitch.tv/ShoePlays, when I'm not too busy. And if I can, just say go check out the Grandmaster Plan podcast. We've been, it's a long time. I've been inspired by McBeard and Greyboxer with their amazing podcast, and finally got the chance to start my own, and we're having a blast, right, Joe? It's been amazing so far for me. And
I've been having an absolute blast doing it. It's been great working with you guys.
Yeah, Joe will tell you the same thing. So it's been awesome, and hope you guys will check that out, and we can keep the great podcast rolling, both us and CH.
Yeah, Grandmaster Plan is it's obviously a podcast, so it's very similar, but it's more competitively focused as far as like high level play stuff. And I mean, it's good. It's seen a couple of evolutions, but right now I think the hosts right now are really good, and you definitely should be checking that out. You guys upload on the TopDeck channel on Sundays, I believe.
Yeah,
so we're live on Sundays.
We're doing live on Sundays, 4 p.m. Eastern on TopDeck, and then their YouTube usually a few days later. So if you want to find us.
There you go. Flake, to round it out, where can people find you and your content?
Well, you can find me now reading Joe's Twitter. That's definitely what's happening. That is incredible. For everyone out there who does not know this, this has been a campaign movement for the ages to get Joe just to acknowledge that Twitter is an actual thing. It's not a phase. It's not a trend. Joe has made it. He has come through. He's bust through the other side of technology. So, I mean, a big congratulations to you, Joe. Thank you very much. What people don't know is Joe has had a Twitter account the whole time. He's had it for like...
I have had it for months.
Exactly. I've been tagging him into stuff for the longest time, and I'm just like, Joe, did you get that tweet? He's like, I don't know what Twitter is. I don't. It's like a... He thought it was like a type of soda. I don't know what it is. Nonetheless, you can find me at WatchFlake on Twitter or twitch.tv/WatchFlake. I am on usually around this time, Monday to Friday at about 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on after McBeard stream. And that's pretty much my whole shtick.
Right on, man. And of course, the coin flip on YouTube.
Right. I'm sorry. Wow. Yes. Thank you very much. I also host a Gwent themed debate show called The Coin Flip. The most recent episode actually featured JoeSnow and McBeard, who were the casting duo of Wild Hunt, and I think it was an absolute blast. And they're fantastic on it. So you can go ahead and check that out on the TopDeck YouTube account as well. So thank you for rescuing me from that. And yes, that's where you can find me.
I mean, we had a great time on the coin flip, me and Joe, and yeah, please watch it. I think it's pretty funny. I thought it was a pretty funny episode. But I mean, that'll do it. This has been the panel of hosts here, your Philadephia friends, and I love the hashtag not my Joe Snow. Joe Snow doesn't have Twitter. I see that from Crander47. But that'll do it. We'll wrap it up here. Thanks so much for everybody joining us for another episode of Commander's Horn. For the host, this is McBeard. Best of luck on the path.